Once, there was a bad boy whose name was Jim. Though if you will notice, you will find that bad boys are nearly always called James in your Sunday school books. It was strange, but still it was true, that this one was called Jim. He didn't have one of those sick, pious, alcoholic mothers who would be glad to lie down in the grave and be at rest for her boy. Or one of those mothers who felt anxiety that the world might be harsh and cold towards her son after her death. No, it was different with this young fellow. He was named Jim, and there wasn't anything the matter with his mother. No consumption, nor anything of that kind.
Jim?
Once, when this bad boy snuck jam from the kitchen pantry, he had tried to fill up the vessel with tar so that his mother would never know the difference. And unlike most boys, not once did a terrible feeling ever come over him. Not once did his conscience whisper in his ear, "Is it right to disobey my mother? Isn't it sinful? And where do sons go when they gobble up their good, kind mother's jam?"
Why do you do this to me, Jim? Why do you do this? I try so hard to make your life happy. And year after year, you keep sneaking behind my back like this.
Oh my God, you are so full of talk. Ever since Dad walked out, it's been the same routine, over and over again.
Jim, stop it.
I'll do so much to make your life happy. You know what, you don't do a goddamn thing to make my life happy. I do all the heavy lifting myself.
Jim, stop it.
And you know what, I'm done with this house. I'm done with you, and I'm done with everything that makes me feel like I'm not gonna amount to nothing.
Jim, stop it!
She, too, had been punished this way during her youth, and she had assumed it would be the best way to discipline Jim, too. But Jim was not like others his age. Everything turned out differently with him from the way it does to the other bad Jameses in the Sunday school books. Once, he snuck into Farmer Acorn's orchard to steal apples, and he never took a tumble or broke his arm. Nor did Farmer Acorn even bother to go after him. He just watched him go. His mother heard about it. Well, she thought, I suppose this means another form of discipline is in order. But, you know, the way Jim saw it, being bad was a necessity, whatever the cost. Then there was evening Bible study. To Jim, Bible study was nothing more than a bunch of pretty, ornery preaching. But everybody else loved it, and would always go home with such a powerful lot to say about faith and good works and free grace and pre-4R destination and I don't know what all. And nobody did more talking about it than George Wilson. George was the moral boy, the good boy of the village, who always obeyed his mother, and never told an untruth, and was fond of his lessons, and infatuated with Sunday school. Now, in the Sunday books, what might usually happen in cases like these is that a white-haired, improbable justice of the peace would probably appear out of nowhere, strike an attitude, and have Jim whaled for trying to get George Wilson framed with a knife. But that's not what happened here. It would go down as one of the roughest Sundays any of them had ever run across yet. They all sat there, watching horrified as their pacifistic, ornery preacher of a schoolmaster turned into a wretched monster. And, unfortunately, a venerable justice did not come out of the sky to read the tearful school homily and take poor George by the hand and say such a boy deserved to be exalted, and then tell him to come and make his home with him, and sweep out his office, and make fires, and run errands, and chop wood, and study law, and help his wife to do household labors, and have all the balance of the time to play and be happy. No, it would have happened that way in the books, but it didn't happen that way to Jim. And Jim was glad of it because, Jim hated moral boys. He always liked to say,
Moral boys? I'm down on them milksops and they can go straight to hell. Just like Huckleberry Finn and that nigger of his whose name I don't remember at the moment.
such was the coarse language of this bad, neglected boy. But the strangest thing that ever happened to Jim happened on a Sunday in autumn, when he decided to run away from home and follow the river all the way down to the sea. And no harm ever came to him the whole trip. Why, you might look and look all through the Sunday school books from now till next Christmas, and you would never come across anything like this. Riverbeds infested with bad boys usually always get upset on Sundays, and it tends to always storm when bad boys go near the river on the Sabbath. I guess the way I see it is, this Jim bore a charmed life. That must have been the way of it, because nothing could hurt him. And then, some years later, when Jim finally did come home, he was as drunk as a piper. But unlike most runaway boys, he didn't come back to find himself sad and alone in the world, or his loved ones sleeping in the quiet churchyard, or the vine-embowered home of his boyhood tumbled down and gone to decay. No, when Jim came back, everything was just like he left it. Except by then he was so drunk, he had very little recollection of anything about the life he had lived as a boy. He remembered only that he had been trash. And trash, as someone once wrote, is what people is that puts dirt on the heads of their friends, or in Jim's case, his loved ones, and makes them ashamed. And Jim, well, he was tired of being something his loved ones were ashamed of. And on the shores of that river, he made himself a promise not to be trash no more. I'm gonna be a man now, he thought. I'm gonna prosper. I'm gonna make something of myself. I'll meet somebody and take her hand in mine. Hell, I might even raise a family with her. It'll be good. And more importantly, I'll be good.
I'm so proud of you, Jimmy.
But their next 10 years together would be anything but happy.
You know what? I'm done with this house. I'm done with you, and I'm done with everything that makes me feel like I'm not gonna amount to nothing.
Jim, stop it!
So, on that night, 10 years after the wedding, it was all thrown away. First his wife, and then their 3 children, whose bodies he set off to the side, each wrapped carefully in tarp. It would go down as the only night of his life when he felt the one thing everybody thought he was incapable of: grief. Grief that lasted for maybe an hour or so. And then it was gone again. Every last bit of human decency was pressed out, and he returned to his bad, corrupt, old self. He is now the infernalist, wickedest scoundrel in his native village, universally respected and belonging to the legislature. So you see, there never was a bad James in the Sunday school books that had had such a streak of luck as this sinful Jim, with the charmed, wasted life.